A misleading open letter about sci-fi AI dangers ignores the real risks. This is a good list, but I'm continually surprised that people ignore what seems to me like the worst realistic danger of AI. That is the use of AI by militaries, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies. AI will cause a huge expansion of the power of these institutions, with no accompanying increase in the power of the people to control them. Forget the Terminator scenario. We don't need to invoke science fiction to imagine the atrocities that might result from an unchecked increase in military and law enforcement power. AI that obeys people is just as scary as AI that doesn't. Humans are plenty capable of atrocities on our own. Just look at history. And regulation is unlikely to save us from government abuse of AI, quite the opposite in fact.
The ones who will benefit the most from AI, in terms of being able to scale the most with it, will be the ones who care very little about reputational risk and have relatively high tolerance for mistakes and misses. That is, those who can operate these kinds of models without needing to carefully check and monitor all of its output. So, scammers, spammers, and astroturf-heavy propaganda operations. This tech may 5x or 10x a lot of jobs output over the next few years, but it can 100x or more those, and it can do it sooner.
Your criteria also all match for authoritarian regimes, many of which love AI-based surveillance solutions.
That is not really an AI-specific risk, all that can happen totally without AI. AI might make it more cost-efficient in a way, but that doesn't imply that power cannot be held in check, etc. East Germany had a gigantic internal spy apparatus with plenty of power for violence and control, etc. But in the end, that didn't stop the place from crumbling.
AI makes the entire process less reliant on human involvement. Humans can be incredibly cruel, but they still have some level of humanity. They need to believe in some ideology that justifies their behavior. AI, on the other hand, follows commands without questioning them.
The AI still will be used by a human, unless you think that the actual power moves to the AI, and not the humans and their institutions using it.
It removes the human from the actual thing, which means two things. It's easier for humans to tell themselves that what they are doing is good for the world. And second, it puts a power multiplier into the hands of potentially very radical people holding extreme minority views on human rights, dignity, etc. You just need one person to type, "Kill every firstborn," and tell the parents that this is retribution for the rebellion, instead of that one person convincing thousands of people to follow their unlawful order, which might take decades of propaganda and indoctrination. And that one person only sees a clean progress bar, instead of having to deal with 18-20-year-olds being haunted by nightmares of crying parents and siblings, and baby blood on their uniforms. Yes, in the end it's a human typing the command, but AI makes it easier than ever for individuals to wield large power unchecked. Most nations make it allowed, and many also require soldiers to refuse unlawful orders, i.e. those instructing war crimes.
That kind of AI does not exist, and might not for a long time or indeed ever. i.e. it can fully manipulate the physical world at scale, and unopposed.
Chapped plugins can go out and access the internet. The internet is hooked up to things that physically move things. Think stuff like industrial SCADA or bridge controls. You can remotely pan a gun around with the right apparatus, and you can remotely pull a trigger with a sister mechanism. Right now we have drone pilots sitting in trailers running machines halfway across the world. Who is to say that some of these human-controlled things have already been replaced by AI? I think AI manipulating the physical world is a lot closer than you think.
Humans can be incredibly cruel, but they still have some level of humanity. History is filled with seeming counter-examples. They need to believe in some ideology that justifies their behavior. Your people are inferior to my people and do not deserve to live. I know I'm Godwin's logging this, but you're close to wishing Pol Pot and Stalin away.
1984 was only limited by Orwell's imagination on what was possible with future technology.
I think 1984 is a perfect example of the limitations of this type of thinking. 80 years ago, Orwell and other authors saw a future where technological power has gone entirely to the governments and are being used to oppress citizens. The future played out completely differently. Government is far more open and transparent. Citizens routinely use technology to check the power of the state, recording police abuse on smartphones, sharing on social media, transacting stateless currency. When it comes to technological change, pessimism always feels smarter than optimism, but it has a poor track record.
We agree that impact on labor are three of the main risks of AI. I'm perpetually puzzled by that argument. It popped up the other day in a FT article about how jobs would be impacted, and in the grander scheme of things, it's the general one whenever automation optimizes something that used to be done manually before. People equate jobs being removed to something necessarily bad, and I think it's wrong. The total output didn't change. We don't need meatbags to sit in a chair, rather than having it done by silicium instead. People don't need to be occupied all day by a job. The problem is not with new technology lifting up something that was traditionally done by a human, but with how the system distributes sustenance, or in this case, doesn't distribute it, and how such transitions are supported by society. Tractors replaced people working in fields, and that allowed modern society. Now we're at the first tangible glimpse of actually having robots serve us, and we want to kill that, since it's incompatible with our system of modern human exploitation, rather than changing the system itself, because God forbid this is going to benefit everyone. I think that sucks.
The real impact of AI is likely to be subtler. AI tools will shift power away from workers and centralize it in the hands of a few companies. I don't understand how the article can say something like this, but then further down essentially contradict itself. But a containment approach is unlikely to be effective for AI. LLMs are orders of magnitude cheaper to build than nuclear weapons or cloning, and the cost is rapidly dropping. And the technical know-how to build LLMs is already widespread. How can AI tools cause centralization if the cost is rapidly dropping, accessible to everyone, and the technical know-how is widespread? In my opinion, AI is doing exactly the opposite. What was only possible at large companies are now becoming possible to do by oneself. Video games, for example, used to require teams of artists and programmers. With code and art generation, a single individual has never had more capability to make something by themselves.
With code and art generation, a single individual has never had more capability to make something by themselves. That is nice and all, but let me put it this way. If it costs you 3 cents in computing power to have AI write the necessary code for something, or draw good art, you can't reasonably expect anyone to pay you more than 3 cents for it. Your economic value as a worker matches the economically productive things you can do, and that's what is going to put food on your table. If an AI can do in 10 seconds for 10 cents a task that would take you an hour, congratulations, your maximum wage is 10 cents. If, when the AI becomes better than you at everything, your work is worthless, your ideas are worthless. So it all comes down to the physical assets you possess. And that's why it is centralizing. The most decentralized class of asset is human labor. AI has the potential to render it worthless, and whatever remains, land, natural resources, is already more centralized. There is a small number of people who may be uniquely talented to leverage AI to their benefit, but it is unclear how long that period might last.
I truly believe one of the biggest dangers of AI in our not-so-distant future will be the reaction to a lot of the LLM spam, introducing an internet reality issued by governments to keep track of real people, and the internet will become divided into a walled non-anonymous garden, and a hellscape of GPT content on the other side. I hope I'm wrong, but it's one of those roads to hell that can get paved with good intentions.
Yeah, I think a primary challenge with LLMs is to somehow identify them. If we can't, the net will become swamped by fake humans, bent on distorting human reality in whatever way serve their masters' whims. Frankly, I think identification of LLM personas versus humans will be impossible. It's increasingly likely then that the rise of LLMs may introduce the decline of the internet as a way to connect with other humans. Soon nobody will want to take an internet entity seriously unless it can prove it's human. And I don't see any way to do that. So maybe LLM fake entities will be the straw that breaks the net's back as a social medium and propels us back into the physical world. I hope so.
It is true that the rise of language models has the potential to introduce fake personas that could manipulate and distort human reality. However, I believe that identifying LLM personas versus humans is not impossible. There are techniques that can be used to detect synthetic content, such as detecting patterns in the language used or analyzing the response time. Additionally, researchers and companies that have been discussed on HN itself that are already working on developing tools to combat deepfakes and synthetic content. While it's important to remain vigilant about the potential negative impact of LLMs, it's also important to remember the positive ways in which they can be used. Language models have the potential to revolutionize industries such as healthcare and education by analyzing vast amounts of data and providing insights that can improve people's lives. Furthermore, I don't think that the rise of LLMs will necessarily lead to the decline of the internet as a social medium. Rather, it will likely lead to a greater emphasis on trust and transparency in online interactions. We may see the development of new technologies that enable people to verify the authenticity of online identities, or the rise of platforms that prioritize human-to-human interaction. Overall, I believe that while there are challenges associated with the rise of LLMs, there are also opportunities for positive change. It's important to continue to monitor the development of these technologies and take proactive steps to ensure that they are used in a responsible and ethical manner.
Dang, should boring, chat-generated comments like these be banned?
I agree with what I see to be the main thrust of this article. AI itself isn't a danger, but how people choose to use AI certainly can be dangerous or helpful. That's been true of every new technology in the history of mankind. Similarly, CNET used an automated tool to draft 77 news articles with financial advice. They later found errors in 41 of the 77 articles. This kind of information is useless without a baseline. If they asked humans to draft 77 news articles and later went back to analyze them for errors, how many would they find?
Guns don't kill people, people kill people. Here in the United States, that's a popular statement amongst the pro-gun 2A supporters. It strikes me as very similar to this discussion about AI. AI can't hurt people, people hurt people. I haven't spent enough time to fully form an opinion on the matter. I'm just pointing out the similarities in these two arguments. I'm not sure what to think anymore. I'm equally excited and apprehensive about the future of it.
AI itself isn't a danger, but how people choose to use AI. For our current AI, much less intelligent than humans, that's true. If rapid exponential progress continues, and we get AI smarter than us, then the AI's choices are the danger.
Over 1,000 researchers, technologists, and public figures have already signed the letter. Embarrassing. Greater than should we let machines flood our information channels with propaganda and untruth? Already been a problem for a century. The root problem is letting the same people turn the volume to 11. The problem is who owns the means of technology, and therefore AI. Greater than should we automate away all the jobs, including the fulfilling ones? This is silly on its face. Automating jobs is a problem. More leisure is a problem. If you want to still do those former jobs, now hobbies, then you are free to. Just like you can ride a horse still. Of course, I'm being obtuse on purpose. The real root fear is about other people, the people who own the means of technology, making most of us obsolete, and then most of us not being able to support ourselves. But why can't we support ourselves with AI, the thing that automated us away because the technology has been hoarded by the owners of technology? So you can't say that the root issue is about automation if you end up starving, or else the robots could feed you. Clearly that's not it. What's rich is that technologists and other professionals have been the handmaidens of advanced alienation, automation, and indirectly, concentration of power and wealth. Politically, uncritically. And when they fear that all of this is cranked to 11, they are unable to formulate a critique in political terms because they are political idiots. Greater than should we develop non-human minds. The embarrassing part. Preaching a religion under professional pretenses.
Greater than should we develop non-human minds. The embarrassing part. Preaching a religion under professional pretenses. There are quite a few companies with the explicitly stated goal of developing AI. You can debate whether or not it's possible, as that is an open question, but it certainly seems relevant to ask, should we even try? Especially in light of recent developments.
There could be quite a few companies whose mission statement involves summoning the Antichrist, and it would still just be religion.
Is it possible that in the end, humanity will decide that the internet just isn't worth it,